Say hi, Oliver. Say hello. Hello, people. I am cute and adorable and tiny and making lots of noise. Hello, everyone. I'm Jessie, and welcome to Plot Twists. So today we're going to be doing my July wrap-up. I read 6 books in the month of July. As always, we're going to start with some reading stats. So in the month of July, I read 6 full-length novels and a total of 2,204 pages. So of the 6 books that I read in July, all of them were physical novels. I read 3 4-star books and 3 5-star books, so overall a pretty good reading month for July. Breaking it down into genres, I read 2 sci-fi novels, 2 fantasy novels, 1 romance, and 1 mystery. And without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started with my thoughts. So the first book that I have to talk about is Malibu Rising by Jenkins Reid. If you're unfamiliar, Malibu Rising centers around one of the husbands from the 7 husbands of Evelyn Hugo, Mick Riva, who is basically a blip in that story. And the book centers around his kids. Some of the things I really liked about this novel is that it switches perspective between present day, which is building up to a party that the kids have, and from the very beginning of the story you realize that the house is going to burn down and you're trying to figure out, kind of sort of how that happens. But the other thing I really liked is that it gives you a lot of backstory between Mick Riva and the kid's mom, and kind of how their story begins, and some of the early years of the kids, which kind of gives you perspective as to how they end up, where they are present day. This book was another great Jenkins Reid novel, no questions asked. I would not say that this is my favorite of the ones that I read so far, but it's still a solid story and I still really enjoyed it. The ending was fantastic. The characters are really interesting, and I feel like she devotes enough time to them to give them some solid character development. I would say one of the things that I thought was interesting about this book is it focuses a lot on side characters that you only see once or twice, and I thought that that was kind of an interesting choice from an author perspective, because it, in my opinion, kind of distracted from the story. And for that reason, I rated this book 4 out of 5 stars instead of 5 out of 5 stars. Normally I talk about these books in the order that I read them, but I'm going to deviate from that slightly this month so that I can talk about the first 2 books in Mistborn Era 2, both of which I read this month, and those are Alloy of Law and Shadows of Self. These 2 books take place a significant time jump after Mistborn Era 1, and they center around our 2 main characters of Wax and Wayne. Waxilium Ladrian is a outlaw who has lived in the roughs and very much takes in criminals and accepts their bounty, and that's kind of what he does for a living. And then he inherits a large portion of land and property and becomes a house lord because his uncle passes away, and he kind of has to figure out how he fits into the society that he grew up in all over again. I think these 2 books are my favorite Brandon Sanderson that I've read so far. The story is jam-packed and interesting and constantly evolving. I liked the second book more than I liked the first one, which I also feel like is rare for me to say in general, but I definitely did not feel that way about Mistborn Era 1. The middle book, Well of Ascension, I thought was a little lackluster in my opinion. So I didn't have super high hopes for Shadows of Self, and yet it was excellent. It's probably on my top 10 books that I've read so far this year. I also really didn't expect to enjoy these books, given that they are definitely more like Wild West themed. And typically that's not my jam, but I don't know, man. These books were just so good. I I look forward to reading Bands of Mourning next month, and then I'll be able to give you my full thoughts on the series. I rated Alloy of Law 4 out of 5 stars, and I rated Shadows of Self 5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read last month was Leviathan Wakes by James S.A. Corey. This is a sci-fi novel that takes place it's a significant portion in the future and centers around kind of two different perspectives. One of Holden, who is the captain of a particular ship, and he has a crew, and the perspective of Miller, who starts the story as an intergalactic cop. I don't even think I could give you a solid synopsis of this book without giving too many spoilers away. But basically, this book has to do with a lot of intergalactic politics and a couple planets potentially on the brink of war. There's a large portion of this book that talks about the differences between the outer planets and the outer bands, and Earth and Mars, which are pretty relevant to this particular story, and how their society views these two worlds very, very differently. I don't know. I really, really loved this story. It's probably one of the best written sci-fi novels that I've read in a very, very long time. But also, it's rare for me to read a story with a character that I don't connect to and still get to the end of the book and go, wow, that was really good. And I think that that's definitely the case here. There's a couple characters that I somewhat connected to, but I didn't finish the story and go, wow, this is my favorite character, I really loved this. I feel like I actually really loved this for the plot. And just for me, I feel like that's pretty rare because I'm a very character-driven reader. So needless to say, I gave this 5 out of 5 stars, and I have every intention of picking up the second book, Caliban's War, this month. I also read a NetGalley arc this month called The Past is Red. I'm not even sure really where I want to begin talking about this book because it was probably the weirdest thing that I've ever read. I very much considered DNFing this book in the very beginning of it, and I'm honestly glad that I didn't. As I persisted through the story, I kind of realized why it's written in such a strange way. Basically, this book centers around a society in which they are living on literal floating garbage. The characters live inside their house until they are 6 or 7, and then when they walk outside, society names them. All of their names are based on brands from our day and age, and basically somebody takes a name from a piece of garbage that's floating in this thing, and that's how somebody gets their name. As the story goes on, you realize that this is 100% commentary on climate change. And I think that really tied the story in for me. When you realize kind of sort of where the story is going by the end, it really pulls on your heartstrings and makes you realize, wow, this is really a possibility. In the end, I did end up giving this 4 stars. I was very much thinking towards the beginning that it would be a 2-star read for me. But the end and kind of the global impact of the story ended up changing my opinion, and I did end up rating it 4 stars. I do want to preface to say that this was definitely written in a very unconventional way, and I really didn't necessarily care for that, but I think because of the overarching theme, I understood why the choice was taken the way it was. The last book I have to talk about for my July wrap-up is Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. And given everything that I've said about the rest of the books, this is my favorite book that I read this month. This book was exceptional. This centers around our main character of Kaya, who is basically abandoned by her entire family at 7 years old and has to figure out how to survive in the world that she is in. She's in the marshlands in North Carolina, and that's basically where the story starts. But this book is really about the murder of a prominent boy in this particular town, and they suspect that Kaya has committed this murder for a whole slew of reasons. As you go through the book, you kind of realize that the town is very much against this girl and just wants to demonize her. And without giving too much more away of the plot, I loved this book. The ending was spectacular. I like the way that the author kind of wrapped everything up, but also I loved seeing Kaya's development across this story. I mean, she is a fighter every step of the way. As something else kind of gets in her way, she finds a way to deal with it. She continues to cope. I mean, I can't think of many 7-year-olds on their own that would figure out how to do things in the way that she did. Also, humans are resilient, so maybe this happens more than I realize. I mean, I hope not. But in general, this story was just so good. I was worried that this would not live up to the hype, given, you know, how many people love this story, but I think this was 100% worth the hype, and if you haven't picked this book up, I highly recommend it. An excellent coming-of-age story. Alright guys, so that's the end of my July wrap-up. Let me know in the comments down below if you read any of these books, and or what your favorite book that you read during the month of July was. I honestly had a really good reading month, but I'm really looking forward to some of the books that I have picked out for the month of August. If you guys liked this video, please like and subscribe. Tap the bell icon for notifications of when I post new videos, and I will see you guys again soon. Bye!